How's it going, guys? My name is Hafiz Kanji, and welcome to my YouTube channel where we'll be talking about EPL and FPL. What better way to start my first video than to talk about the best team in England, Liverpool FC, baby? The first thing I really want to talk about is just about Liverpool's form. So over the past 5 seasons, Liverpool have been the only reason why EPL has been competitive. I mean, Man City and Liverpool have been going toe to toe, back and forth, but this season Liverpool had a massive drop off, and there's a lot of factors that really fell into it. But this wasn't the first time that this happened. It also happened in 2020 when Van Dijk had his season-ending injury. And to be honest, there's no replacement for anyone in the squad for Alisson, Van Dijk, Trent, and Mo. But they weren't the reason why we didn't play well this season. It's more the periphery. There was so many injuries and so many replacements. Mane left. He was replaced by a younger guy, Darwin Núñez. And there was just too much reliance on him in his first season. I mean, Jota was injured for half the season. Luis Diaz was injured for half the season. The midfield just didn't have enough strength and enough oomph in it, really. And so Liverpool fell off. So, and you can see it. Like, you can just see it from the points over the last couple of seasons. But if we just look at the goals for, you can see that we weren't scoring enough goals. And also in terms of goals against, we were conceding too many goals. And that's just a recipe for disaster. So what happened? I guess the first thing to talk about, the Liverpool that we've grown to know, is their 4-3-3 classic formation, where Firmino would drop in and Salah and Mane would be bombing up the wings, and Trent and Robbo would be staying as wide as possible from fullback and creating this space so it would allow Salah and Mane to tuck in and to be essentially, Liverpool's like goal scoring players. But what would happen is that Trent and Robertson would be creating a lot of passes, but there would just be a lot of space in behind. And the only reason this strategy would work was because Liverpool had a strong engine room in midfield. Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho, these guys did a lot of the work for the team that allowed Trent and allowed Robertson to push forward. But there was just so many injuries in midfield, and we never really replaced Wijnaldum for years. So, and to be honest, like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita were almost non-existent this season. So there was a lot of fragility with the squad. And because of the injuries, there was just a lot of inconsistency that came with the squad. But a lot of things changed. And it actually happened when Liverpool played Arsenal this season, where Klopp ended up realizing, like, hey, Trent is bombing forward a lot. Robertson's bombing forward a lot. And what can we do to combat that? Because what teams would do is they would just sit back, wait for Liverpool to push forward, and there'd be a lot of space in behind for the opposing wingers. And so Klopp countered that by changing formation into a 3-4-3 structure. And this is kind of what allowed Trent Alexander-Arnold to come into midfield. And what it does is it brings out Liverpool's strengths while minimizing its weaknesses. I mean, Trent isn't the best one-on-one defender, but he's a world-class playmaker from right back. He averaged around like 10 assists per season over the past couple of seasons. And so what it does is it allows him to bring out his passing and his vision, brings it into midfield, and allows Konate to be the one that's going to be covering the opposing winger. And it just provides much more balance to the team. And we found this as it happened from the game against Arsenal and for the remaining 9 games. And so those 10 games total, Liverpool had a record of 7 wins and 3 draws. And this is kind of what was the spark in Liverpool's form. And you can just see that from the depth of the squad. Now that we changed formations, people have to find a new way, like a new role that they have to fit into. And so Robertson was like the key. It basically had a really big impact on Robertson, and Salah, I'd say, would be the players that are most impacted, because Robertson wasn't able to bomb forward towards the touchline. I mean, we're so used to Robertson going all the way to the byline and cutting it back. But that's not what Robertson's role is. Robertson's role is a much more reserved, conservative role. He's still able to bomb forward, but he's basically saying more disciplined to allow Trent to have the freedom to dictate the play. And it's really impacted by this heat map, which you can see for Trent Alexander-Arnold. So for the first 30 games of the season, this is what Trent Alexander-Arnold's heat map was on the left. And you can see how he's always hogging the touchline, playing as a proper wing back, where he's overlapping or crossing balls from deep. Whereas in the remaining 10 games, he's sitting towards more of the midfield. He's playing an inverted midfielder role. And you can see it in the heat map. He's allowed to dictate the play similar to what a Pirlo would do, or similar to what a Rodri or a De Bruyne was doing in their team. And Trent is a world-class passer. As soon as this happened, you could really see his swagger stepped up, his confidence stepped up. He ended up being number 1 in assists from this moment onwards. Chances created, possessions won. He's a world-class passer. Like I said, Trent had an assist in 5 consecutive games. And this is the second time he's done it in his career. And remember, he's a right back. And he's the only player to have done this in the Premier League twice. So he's a golden player, and I think he is the key for Liverpool's success. And there's a really large media narrative against Trent, really. Like, he can't really defend one-on-ones. There's so many memes going around like Martinelli or Saka, or you'll see a lot of memes about Foden. Whenever they're coming up against Trent, they're going to have a field day. But really, it's just a media narrative that's being built up against Trent. And I'd say even the England manager himself, Gareth Southgate, he hasn't really included Trent in any of the England setup. And it's really surprising because he has so much quality. If we just look at Trent's statistics and we compare them to who he's being replaced by in the England squad, Reece James. If you just multiply Reece James' statistics by 2, he doesn't really come close to Trent. And you can see this. So over the past 5 seasons, Trent has had around 10 plus goal involvements. And he's just consistently being able to provide the attacking intent from fullback. But he's just different gravy in midfield, bro. And you can see this because statistically, per 90, he's the second best player in creating line breaking passes. So he's not passing sideways or left or backwards. He's pushing the ball forward, progressive passing, and he's creating opportunities for the team. And that's why he's the second best player in the league for line breaking passes. And you can just see it from the statistics from an FPL perspective. So once that Arsenal game came in, we ended up dominating them. If Salah had scored that penalty, we actually would have beat Arsenal. And that's saying a lot because Arsenal have been the second best team in England for the whole season. But from there onwards, his statistics speak for themselves. Assists versus Arsenal, 2 assists versus Leeds, assists versus Forest, assists versus West Ham, assists versus Spurs, clean sheet versus Fulham, clean sheet versus Brentford, clean sheet and goal versus Leicester, and a blank versus Aston Villa, and then an assist on the last day, where typically on the last day of the season, you'll see lots of goals be going in. But it just shows you what Trent can do. And Trent's form really was coincided with Liverpool's form. And it's no coincidence. Whenever Liverpool are playing well, it's probably because of Trent and probably because of Mo. But his attacking threat isn't the only reason that he's a great FPL asset. It's because he also has a world-class defense and keeper behind him. He has Virgil van Dijk, who's protecting the back four, Konate, who's been really underrated this season and been stepping in for and taking over a lot of minutes from Joel Matip as he's being phased out of the squad. And they have Alisson Becker, who I believe is the best goalie in the world. I mean, there was that moment 2 years ago when Liverpool were having like their down season during Virgil van Dijk's injury, and Alisson comes up there and he got the header that basically secured Liverpool with top 4 football and gave us Champions League football for next season. I mean, that moment alone, he was goated. But over the past 5 seasons, he's been really consistent and consistently been on this chart for XG prevented. This year, he prevented 8.5 extra goals, which means that Liverpool would have conceded 43 plus 8.5 extra goals. And it just shows how great Alisson is. And to me, I think he's the best goalkeeper I've seen in the Prem over the past 5 seasons since I've been watching and really been like diving deep into statistics. So let's just look at Trent's points this season. He ended with 156 points. He only had 10 clean sheets, though, this season, whereas Liverpool kept 14 clean sheets, which means that he was probably subbed early or wasn't included in the squad, either for bad behavior or maybe Klopp was just messing around and trying to find the best formation that suited the team. And he was just tinkering with little things here and there. But I think the truth is when you're watching, you really realize Trent is the hub of this team. There's no replacing him in the squad. And to me, I just believe that if there's a 38 game season, I would expect him to play every game. So given the scenario, he only got 10 clean sheets, whereas Liverpool got 14 next season. I wouldn't expect that. So if we just added those 4 clean sheets that he missed out on back in his points, that'd be 4 clean sheets times 4 points per clean sheet. That's 16 points. So 156 plus 16 is 172. And that's their down year. Imagine when they're actually having a good season, when they're playing solidly and consistently. So if we look at Trent's history over the past 5 seasons, Trent averaged an XG of 2.0 and an XA of 10.3. And over the past 9 seasons, I wanted to use a bigger sample size because I know Liverpool have been so dominant over the past 5 seasons. But over the past 9 years, Liverpool have averaged 15 clean sheets per season. So let's just look at that from an FPL perspective. So if Trent gets 2 goals, defenders get 6 points for a goal. That's 12 points. If he gets 10 assists, it's 3 points for an assist. That's 30 points. And I know 15 clean sheets is what they've been averaging over the past 9 seasons over a big sample size, but let's be conservative. Let's just assume he gets 12 clean sheets. That means he'll end up with 4 points for a clean sheet times 12. That's 48 points. And I'm going to assume he plays every game, just assuming whenever he's fit and available to play, he'll be in the starting 11 and he won't be subbed off before the 60-minute mark. So that's 38 appearances times 2 points for the full appearance. That'll be 72 points. But he won't be asked to do much one-on-one defending. So I would doubt that he would pick up many yellow cards, but let's just assume he does pick up some more along the way because he's in the middle of the park trying to protect the back four. Just to be more conservative, right? So over the past 5 seasons, he's only averaged 4 per season, but let's just assume he ends up with 7, right? So if we add all those numbers together, we get 155 points. And this doesn't even include bonus points. And Trent is a bonus points magnet because he's creating lots of chances for the team and he's a defender on top of that. Over the past 5 seasons, Trent has averaged 25 bonus points. And so if we add the 25 bonus points to that subtotal of 155, you get to 180 points. And that's why I just think Trent is the FPL GOAT. The advantage of going for someone like Trent in FPL is that you pay a premium for someone that's going to deliver you the points. But the counter argument against Trent is what if you went for someone cheaper? Like what if you went for a Gabriel from Arsenal, or you went for an Estupiñán from Brighton, or you go for a Trippier from Newcastle, or you go for a Reece James, players like that who are cheaper. And what if you could spend the rest of the money on the rest of the squad? Maybe that could be a viable alternative to Trent. And you're right. But what that does is it basically means that you effectively have to spend more transfers on your defender position. Whereas if you pay a premium for someone like Trent, he's basically a set and forget, and he allows you to spend your transfers on midfield where I feel like there's much more upside. Trent isn't the only key for Liverpool. The second key is Mohamed Salah. When we look at his consistency over the past couple seasons, he's been the FPL GOAT for a reason. A lot of times we all owned him because we had to captain him. But now that Erling Haaland is in the league, the effective ownership of Salah is just much lower. So now I feel like you can gain more from owning Mo. But the question is it worth having Mo in your team? Could you have a better team if you had someone like Odegaard and Saka versus having the combination of Ibrichi Eze and Mo Salah, that type of thing? And that's something we're going to have to weigh up just based on the player prices for next season. But what's crazy is that throughout the first half of the season, there was a fixture run where Salah didn't even have a shot on target in multiple games, even at home. And it's crazy because I look at the goals and assists this season in the top 5 leagues, the only players he's behind is Haaland and Mbappe. If imagine that Liverpool were actually on form and creating chances week in, week out, I wouldn't be surprised if Salah would be even higher on this chart and he would end with more goals and more assists by the end of the season. So it's just something to look out for. And there's always this media narrative that, Salah isn't a big game player, but no player has scored more goals against the top 10 than Mohamed Salah this season, even more than Erling Haaland, who's been the FPL GOAT this season. So it's just something to keep in mind. But really, Salah is a big game player too. And I have so many memories of, him scoring against Spurs and him scoring against Man United this year. It's even against Man City. So Salah can do a lot in any fixture, and can't doubt the Egyptian king, baby. But moving on from the king, because I feel like we take him for granted a lot. And because his FPL price is so high, could we potentially cover Mo by having players that are cheaper? And I think the players that come to mind are really Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, Roberto Firmino, Diego Jota, and Luis Diaz. Well, if we look at the minutes played, Roberto Firmino's minutes will probably be dispersed because he has left the club now. So this 1,200 minutes, I think 600 of these minutes will go right to Cody Gakpo. When he came in halfway through the season, he really took up Firmino's role, and he's incredible at keeping the ball. He does it with physicality, whereas Firmino does it with his feet and with his touch. But Gakpo uses his strength a little bit more. It's a little bit different, but similar style of play where he's dropping in deep and linking up to play. So I would expect at least half of Firmino's minutes to go to Gakpo. And I think Darwin Núñez's minutes will stay the same. I think we saw towards the end of the season that Klopp really phased him out of the team. It's not that Núñez can't ball. It's that he's just raw and he's young. He has a lot of potential to him. And I think the Europa League, having that aspect of Liverpool's season, I think that's going to be key for Darwin Núñez's success. I think Núñez will grow from playing those minutes in Europa League, and it'll allow him to thrive and be the main man. And maybe next season he can come back into the fold as being Liverpool's number 9. But for now, I think that's Gakpo's minutes locked for sure. And I say the other half of Firmino's minutes should be dispersed to Diego Jota and to Luis Diaz. I think both of these guys missed too many games this season. I would be surprised if they miss as many games next year. And I think both of them are ballers. I think Jota's a gunman. I think Luis Diaz is a baller. I think they can really step up in terms of what their production was this season. They only produced, 8.6 expected goals and assists this season and 4.0 expected goals and assists this season. So I expect more from that, especially when we look at it relative to someone like Mo, who has 26 goals and assists this season, non-pen. So if we're looking at, hey, can you cover Mo Salah with Luis Diaz or with Cody Gakpo or with Diego Jota? I think the answer to that is no. If we just look at the non-pen XG for Mo, he's going to be at 30 if we include penalties. And even if we increase Cody Gakpo's expected goal involvement from 9 and we increase this to maybe 14 or 15, you're not really covering Mo at all. And so I just think the better way to attack this from an FPL perspective is not, can I cover Mo Salah by having Cody Gakpo? I think the answer is more about, if Darwin Núñez is injured, does that mean Cody Gakpo is nailed? If Diego Jota is injured, does that mean Luis Diaz is nailed? And I think you can't really cover Mo. I think you just have to look for the opportunity where there's higher expected minutes and you're going to be getting a higher return from players like Luis Diaz if Jota's injured, that sort of thing. The one statistic that actually really stands out to me is actually Trent Alexander-Arnold's non-pen XG plus XA. It's actually at 14, which is incredible for a defender. In fact, once he started playing in that inverted role, he was averaging an XGI per 90 of 0.52. That's on par or better than Bukayo Saka on the season, non-penalty, Odegaard from Arsenal, Heung-min Son, Phil Foden, Ollie Watkins. These are the types of players where their bread and butter is scoring goals and assists. But Trent is on the same level as that in terms of creativity, and he's a defender. So he also gets the defensive points on top of that. And that's what makes Trent so special in FPL. Liverpool will go as far as Trent and Mo will take us, but I think that's a lot of reflection on last season. But looking forward, I'd say Liverpool do need to make some signings, in order to basically take the next step forward. And I think we need to look at squad depth. I think the first thing what we would need is probably a center back to basically play in this position where if Robertson's injured, I don't think Tsimikas is a great left center back. So I think Liverpool need to sign one additional center back. And we also definitely need to rejig that midfield. I mean, Oxlade-Chamberlain wasn't playing for many games. Naby Keita wasn't playing for many games. These guys were basically non-existent. So we had such a high burden on Henderson and on Fabinho to play so many minutes. And I don't think that's fair. I really liked the way Bajcetic was playing when he was in the team. Thiago was a world-class mid. So I'm hoping that if these guys end up taking a lot more minutes in midfield, we'll be fine, even though if we're in Europa League. But I feel like signing McAllister was an incredible signing from Brighton. First of all, he knows how to play. Similar to Gakpo, he's really good in terms of ball retention. He can dribble the ball really well. Gakpo does it with physicality, whereas McAllister would do it with his feet and his touch. But he's going to be a great player. A lot of people rate McAllister, and I'm surprised we were able to get him for so cheap. But that's what Liverpool do. Their transfer business is actually incredible. Like, we don't even spend that much money on players. We don't go and buy 100 million Jack Grealish type of player. We'll end up buying like a 40 million Luis Diaz or like a 40 million Sadio Mane or Diego Jota, and we allow them and give them the platform and teach them and elevate them to grow into the players that their potential could be. And that's what I love about Liverpool. But the truth is, like, we can't compete with a squad like Man City unless we add to the team. And so the first thing would be that left center back role. The second thing would be McAllister, which we got. And the next thing would be is another mid, so that way we're not over reliant on Henderson and Fabinho. But if Salah, Trent, Van Dijk, or Alisson get injured, this season is basically over. Next season, I wouldn't be surprised to see Liverpool pushing for the top 4 or even a title run. But the truth is, without those 4, we would have no chance. But that's it. That's it for me, guys. I just want to say thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your time. And if I provided value to you, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And hoping that you have a wonderful day. Peace.